And now, on This Week in History, with Paul Waite.
And it is on This Week in History with me,
Paul Waite.
Yeah.
Paulus Davidius.
I like
Waitus.
to be reminded who I am. This week we have the most number of facts ever on This Week in History, I believe. And so I decided I've actually properly referenced all of my points.
Oh, nice.
They've all got a little code, so I know what order to do them in.
Excellent.
So we'll see if the system works, shall we? So the first one is, I know Callum will know a bit about this as well. A person who I really love, Claudius. So one of the best TV series of all time, I, Claudius. I, Claudius, written by Robert Graves, one of the great authors. Check out some of his other books. Really, really good. So Claudius was the sort of the emperor who was never supposed to be emperor. Everyone thought he was a fool, stuttered, wasn't taken seriously. That was a good thing in the time, because in Rome it was a cutthroat society, poisonings and assassinations rampant. And of course he succeeded one of probably the equal most dreadful ruler in history, other than, I suppose, recent people like Mao and Hitler, Caligula. Do you know what Caligula's nickname was, Callum?
Oh, I do, but I've forgotten. He was
Little Boots.
He was crazy, wasn't he?
Little Boots was his nickname. And Caligula was the guy that made his horse a senator. It's a very naughty film if you want to watch it. Very naughty, if you know what I mean, with Malcolm McDowell and Helen Mirren. Malcolm McDowell plays
I know
Caligula.
which movie you're on about.
Yeah, lots of
Nudity.
smut, we've got to say.
Did you know that Caligula ordered his army? He declared war on Poseidon as well, and ordered his army to go down to the shore, and he stabbed the sea with spears.
Oh, that's good. So, just out of interest, it was under Claudius's emperorship that Rome invaded Britain, or England, it should be said. So, moving on, because I'm already not making a very good start on this, and my referencing system is definitely letting me down as well. So we go all the way to do we? No, that's 2-1. 1-1. There we go. So we go to we'll do them out of order. Who cares? 1556, we had the Jiangxi earthquake, which killed 830,000 people.
Wow!
In China, that's the most people ever killed in
when was that, sorry?
In 1556.
Ooh, crazy.
Whereabouts in China?
Jiangxi.
Wow. That must have been a hell of an earthquake.
Yeah.
In 871, so I managed to get my order back now, we had the Battle of Basing, where the Danish invading army defeated the Saxons under Ethelred, who was the brother of Alfred. So those of you who haven't watched the brilliant series that Callum and I did on the history of the English people, then check it out. In 1371, Robert II became the first monarch of the House of Stuart.
Hey, laddie.
Can you tell me another king who was in the Stuart family?
Was it James?
James,
King James
the first and second.
Yeah.
Charles the first and second.
Yeah, that's it.
They were all Stuarts.
Not my strong point in history.
No, that's good. You did well. Then, we did that one, so that's good. So in 1690, the Iroquois tribes renewed their allegiance to Britain. So one of the things that people don't know about, the Red Indian tribes, Drew, they basically were either on the British side or the French side.
Oh, okay.
So I think the Mohawks were on the side of the French.
You see that in The Last Mohicans.
Yeah, the Mohawks were on the side of the French, like Magua. Yeah. And the Iroquois were on the side of the British. So this is when America was still being fought over between Britain and France, okay? So just to fill that in. In 1771, Spain ceded the Falkland Islands to Britain. Obviously, the legacy of that was the Falkland carried on for years and years. And obviously now Argentina, which is effectively the sort of predecessor of Spain. I suppose. Yeah. And in Spanish, the Falkland Islands is known as Los Malvinas.
Obviously, Falklands War in the was it early 90s?
Thatcher's 80.
Yeah, 80s.
Something like 81 or something like that. Wonderful that we had Margaret Thatcher as the Prime Minister, because she kicked a thing.
Botty.
Just in case Drew says I can't do that. In 1793, which is a bit sad, and obviously this also included Marie Antoinette, Louis XVI was guillotined by the nasty little French Republican people. It's a very sad story, that. Marie Antoinette, very vilified. Nowhere. She's renowned for the let them eat cake, but she didn't actually mean it like that at all. It's very much like Canute saying about the sea. You know, he didn't. He sat in front of the sea for the opposite reason that he's vilified for. He wanted to show the people that he wasn't omnipotent. That was the whole point. And the last point on this first session, and again, Callum will like this one, although it's very sad. In 1870, 173 Blackfeet Indians were slaughtered in Montana by the U.S. Army, of which 140 were children and women.
Whoa.
So one of the things I get very upset with Americans about this. Anyway, so that's the end of the first session on This Week in History.
On This Week in History.
Sorry, man. Welcome back to the second part of This Week in History. And I'm laughing because my son just made me laugh because I was rude to him because he said something. It was his birthday. It was his birthday this week. So happy 31st birthday
Yesterday
to my little boy, who's quite a big boy now. And
I'm
very,
getting old.
very, very strong, has to be said.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we got. I know that Callum's going to like these facts. He knows a lot about this. So in 1879, this has all happened in the same week, which is amazing. The Zulus inflicted maybe the worst, the most embarrassing military defeat on the British in history, I would say. So this was at Iswandoana, and when Callum was a little boy, I bought him a box set of was it called something like Zulu Dawn?
Zulu Dawn and Zulu, yeah.
Yeah, Zulu. So he used to have this poster of Zulu Dawn,
Yeah.
and effectively what happened is. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there were quite a lot of Zulus, maybe 4,000, I think, something like that. But what was amazing, when you consider the next battle we talk about, if it is a battle, is this was against the might of the British Army. So we're talking about, I don't know, they defeated the whole regiment, sort of thing.
I think it was like between 1,000 and 2,000 British soldiers.
And actually, it's quite interesting if you watch the film, which is really good. The reason that actually we got slaughtered was down to the stupidity of the gun master or the armourer or whatever.
Yeah, the ammunition.
The ammunition guy who basically wouldn't give out the bullets. So the whole regiment of the British Army was slaughtered by the Zulus, which makes what happened next even more remarkable. So there we were in Rorke's Drift, and I have friends who've been there, and they tell me. It's no bigger than a small school, small
playground.
Schoolhouse, sort of.
Okay.
So it's a small chapel, say, which makes what happened. So I think there were only
300.
As many as 300,
about 300, yeah.
So we had 300, and these were not even. Most of them weren't even proper soldiers.
Mainly Welsh, I think.
Well, we'll come on to that now. As I tell you this, because I know a lot about this.
Apologies.
So history wrongly accredits this to mostly being Welsh, but it's not true.
Oh, really?
And it's because at the time of 1879, this particular regiment was actually the Warwickshire Regiment.
Oh, okay.
And then it got redesignated as the. I know that because I've been to it. I've been to the Military Museum in Brecon, in Wales. So it then got redesignated as a Welsh regiment. But history has, for some reason, taken... So even though it was afterwards, everyone says basically it was a Welsh regiment that... and in fact, I think the number of Welsh people there was about a third. And what I'm very proud of is the commanding officer was a guy called Chard, who came from Somerset. And you can see his grave in Crewkerne, I think it is. And in the film, he's played by Stanley Baker, who, funnily enough, is Welsh. He was a Royal Engineer. So this is amazing. So effectively, 300 British soldiers. Half of them were...
I just want to correct myself. I just looked it up.
Less so,
it was about 255,
to
be more accurate.
So,
against 3,000 to 4,000 Zulu warriors.
Exactly. And basically, this went on for several days. And effectively, the Zulus gave up in the end. And they basically retreated and basically said, respect you, very brave people. And I think 11 VCs were given out at Rorke's Drift, which was the most in any single military engagement in British history.
They did a good old Sharpie, didn't they? 3 rounds a minute.
In 1907, Charles Curtis became the first Native American U.S. senator for Kansas, which is, I suppose, something to make up for the terrible things we talked about earlier. This is something I know a bit about, actually. In 1920, the Dutch refused to turn over Kaiser Wilhelm to the Allies. So, as we all know, Kaiser Wilhelm was basically the king of Germany, singly responsible for the start of the First World War, and first cousin to George V and to
Tsar
Nicholas II.
Yeah.
He actually saw out his remaining days in Holland. I know that. So he died in Holland. So why the Dutch would want to protect him, I don't know. Moving on, in 1924, Ramsay MacDonald formed the very first Labour government. So Labour government, I'm not sure if this might be later on. The Labour government was actually, the Labour Party was only formed in something like 1870 by Keir Hardie. And I happened to do a project on Keir Hardie as part of my history studies. In 1930, Clyde Tombaugh photographed Pluto for the first time. Pluto! No Pluto at all! It was another Pluto!
That's the dog. That's the dog Pluto.
So I'm running behind. So in 1943, the British 8th Army marched into Tripoli. 8th Army being the Desert Rats, Callum, under the command of Montgomery.
Field Marshal Montgomery.
Yeah, good boy. So so I've picked too many facts today, haven't I, for my own good. So we've got one more to go if I can find it, or I'll have to give up because I'm. Here we go. In 1950, the Israeli Knesset, which is a parliament basically, resolved that Jerusalem was to be the capital of Israel. And of course it is today, and is now recognised by not that many, actually. Probably about 20 countries in the world have recognised Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. It's obviously very politically sensitive. America notably has done that, but also quite a few other countries. So there we are, end of the ambitious second part today.
Bringing you the news of old on This Week in History with Paul
I
Wade.
just turned my knobs up then, Callum, didn't I?
Mate.
Fortunately, Callum could see that my knobs weren't turned up.
Always give your knob due attention.
That's, I don't think that should be allowed. In 1957, Wham-O Company produced the very first Frisbee. And do you know what? It was originally called the Pluto Platter.
Yeah, they needed a rebranding there, didn't they?
Well, they did. I think it only lasted a year. One of the most infamous people in British history. Have you heard of Kim Philby, Callum?
I've heard of Kim Jong-un.
Kim Philby, Burgess and MacLean?
Burgess and MacLean, yeah.
So Kim Philby was part of Burgess and MacLean. In 1962, he defected to the USSR.
Okay.
So this is a top UK secret agent. Effectively went off to work for the Russians and ended up his days in Moscow. So probably one of the great British traitors, or infamous, maybe the right word to use, infamous traitors. So yeah, I'm not sure my new system's working very well, Drew. Actually, I might have to criticise myself. So in 1984, the greatest. So this is something, and I know the guy, Moser. In 1984, the greatest 1 hour bike distance completed on a bicycle ever. 51.15 kilometres cycled in 1 hour.
Wow.
So that's about 32 miles.
Wow.
In an hour. Just put in perspective, I think the most I've ever done in an hour is about 22. But I did cycle 6 lots of 17 miles in 6 hours just before my John O'Groats, which is pretty good. So I did 100 miles in 6 hours, which is not bad, is it?
I mean, in this day and age with traffic and stuff, it's not uncommon to have to spend sort of 45 minutes driving 30 miles, is it? So
I got the fact out of order here. So 1962, Brian Epstein, legendary Brian Epstein, signed the Beatles management contract. Bit of a sad character, bit of a genius. He also discovered Cilla Black, for instance.
good old Cilla.
Jerry and the Pacemakers, I think, were his.
Who all have pacemakers nowadays.
Brian Epstein was gay, and in those days, people were much harsher on gay people than they are today. And he had a bit of a hard life. It's a really good film about his life that you might want to go and see. It's good stuff. Interesting one. This in 1989, the first reported case of AIDS.
Oh, really?
I can remember at the time actually thinking, because at the time, it was probably, it's obviously a much more serious thing than coronavirus, and a lot of people were sort of saying it was the end of the world. This is a disease that basically there was no cure for. Great people like Freddie Mercury,
Of course,
obviously died of it. If Freddie Mercury caught AIDS today, he would have survived, because now they can actually treat AIDS to a point. Then we have in 1979. Interesting fact, this, Callum. So in 1979, Neptune actually passed further away from the Sun than Pluto.
Really?
So Neptune has an elliptical orbit, whereas Pluto's is more...
I'm with you.
whatever the word is.
I'm with you, yeah.
Circular or something. So what actually happens is, because it actually, most of the time, is something, I think it's something like 250 million miles closer to the Sun, but every now and then it actually passes further away. So in 1979, Neptune passed further away from the Sun.
I wonder what the impact on the planet is when that happens.
Yeah, not very much, I wouldn't have thought.
Not think?
No. And we've got 2 more today, I think. So I might have missed one today because my new system definitely doesn't work. Really, again, I'm really into my astronomy, and we're going to do something about this. 2014, water vapor was detected on the dwarf planet Ceres. I personally regard Ceres as being an asteroid. Since Pluto was redesignated as a dwarf planet, along with Eris, as you probably know, Callum. Ceres is now regarded as a dwarf planet as well, but when I learnt astronomy, it was an asteroid. I was taught it was an asteroid. So it's Ceres, I think, is about 1/4 the size of the Moon. So it's quite amazing that water vapor was detected on it. And then the final one today on This Week in History, and very, very topical. So only 1 year ago, the Chinese locked down Wuhan, where coronavirus all started. And Wuhan, has 11 million residents.
Wow.
So effectively 11 million people went into lockdown. So I think that was a very ambitious On This Week in History, and it was very enjoyable, actually, because it's always nice to be able to talk eloquently about one's subject matter. And talking about subject matter, one of the great anthems of all time for me, absolutely love it. Which I sort of regard a little bit as a sort of a nature-pagan song. I don't know why. The Whole of the Moon by the Waterboys. And then a lady who I really admire, fantastic voice. I really like her sort of rockabilly stuff, Imelda May.
Available now on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at aspenwaitradio.com.